Hello everyone, welcome to Beyond Words Presents. I'm Rachel Hayward and I am sitting in for Whitney this week. On our last show last week, we talked with Katherine Gibson about uncluttering our lives of things. And this week, we're going to talk about waste management for our minds. So, today I have Stephen Kaufman sitting with me, co-author of The Garbage Man's Guide to Life, How to Get Out of the Dumps. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Great to be here.
So before we jump into things, I just wanted to remind our viewers that everyone can submit questions, comments through our Twitter hashtag, BWPresents, and through our Google Hangouts app. And if you like our show, please support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. So now that I have all of that out of the way, I wanted to start asking you something that I was immediately curious about when I picked up your book. So how does a garbage man who then founded a company that supplied computing and analytic systems for garbage trucks start talking about mental trash and how we can get rid of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. We were talking about this earlier.
Yes.
Because, the part of the question that she didn't say is because there's not 14 letters after your last name. So it's actually quite a fun story. So back in 1999, 2000, we started this company that made these onboard computers for garbage trucks. And our second customer was a very large waste hauler up in Washington State. Mm-hmm. And our sales guy would come back in and he would hand me this big PO. It's like, wow, we got an order. And but all he talked about were these mythical conversations he had with the owner of LeMay Enterprises. And I'm like, thanks for sharing that. Get out of here because I got work to do. I got to go fill this order. And I was at this company for 11 years and kind of did everything I thought I could do. And I ended up having a conversation with him at the Waste Expo trade show. Everything you want to know about garbage all in one trade show hall, right?
Right.
And we started talking about sort of our philosophies and realized that the two of us have always been on this search for how do we think? Why is it we grab onto certain thoughts? Why is it we keep doing the things that we do? And when we started sharing those philosophies, we started wrapping it around the garbage metaphor. And realized that the more we played with it, the more it started to make sense, as there's nothing new here. You've heard all of this before. You've seen it in a movie. You might have done, a counseling session, a course, a book. There's nothing new here. But when you start talking about it in terms of garbage, mm-hmm. It's vernacular you already have. Everybody knows what garbage is.
Exactly.
And it creates this way of talking about it. It's like, well, I know what to do with garbage. I'm going to throw it away. Mm-hmm. And when you start playing around with the garbage, the truck, the landfill, the can, all of a sudden our eyes kind of lit up. And the more we played with it, the more we realized 30 years of experience in the waste industry and a lifetime of searching for why do we do what we do. When we started mixing those, it was a perfect fit. And that's where the book came from.
Got it. Well, what I'm wondering too is what exactly, how do you define mental trash? And then why is it so important that A, we know it's there, and B, that we get rid of it?
You bet. Great question. So mental trash is, how do you define what garbage is? That's when we do our live talks in front of companies and we do lectures and such. That's one of the first questions that we ask is how do you define garbage? So actually, how would you define garbage? Just if somebody said, what's the meaning of the word?
Things that don't have any use anymore, that I don't want, old, mm-hmm. moldy.
Excellent.
Gross.
Excellent. And if you took all of that, mm-hmm. it's like, well, what's the boil down? Mm-hmm. We define it as anything that has no more value to you anymore. Mm-hmm. Because if it's old, it's moldy, it's gross, why would you want to keep it around? Well, we don't. We throw it in the can and it goes out. And we've been making that decision of what has value to me and what doesn't mm-hmm. ever since you were little. In fact, I have to laugh. My dad is probably watching, and my chore was to empty the kitchen garbage, which of course no kid wants to do.
Of course not.
And the poor man had to put the thing in the hallway for me to trip over it before I would finally empty it. And of course, it's not just full; it's full and overflowing. Right. And that's what goes on in our minds. If you take that image of that absolutely packed garbage can and we keep shoving more and more trash in there, the problem is we don't get rid of it. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about what we call TBOs, thoughts, beliefs, and opinions. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. It's that stuff that just kicks in and you don't even realize it. It just, all of a sudden, some situation happens. Something triggers it. Somebody says something, even an offhanded comment. Oh, is that a new shirt? But the tone of it was like, oh gosh, they don't like my shirt. Oh no, what am I going to do? Oh man, I never dress it. People just don't. And you just go down that rabbit hole. That's mental garbage. And most of the time, you don't even realize it's gone off. But it chains one after the other after the other. And we carry it around. It starts when we're little. Something happened in third grade, something happened in fifth grade. It could be something small, it could be something huge and traumatic. But we're not taught. As I said, I never remember my parents sitting me down and having the garbage talk. They put a backpack on your shoulders, they send you to kindergarten, say, there's the world, I'll pick you up at 3 o'clock. And so it's like we carry this stuff around without realizing that we actually don't have to. So mental garbage is all of that chatter that goes on in our minds.
What does that do?
It zaps your confidence. It holds you back. It keeps us in what we call the comfort zone. And that's that place where I know what I know and I know what I don't know. Okay, and I'm comfortable in there. That I don't know what I don't know, that's where it gets really scary for people. So it's, even if it's negative, we're used to it. We have a group. So if you're used to beating yourself up over something, well, it doesn't feel good, but it doesn't necessarily crater me. I'm kind of used to it. So it zaps our confidence. It's what holds you back from saying, I'm not going to apply for that job. There's no way they're going to consider me for something like that. It's the part of you that won't respond to an ad if you're dating. And you read a profile, you're like, oh, no, I'm not good enough. It's all of that stuff that when it presents itself, it usually will inhibit an action, so you won't do something, or it fires up an emotion. Because a lot of this mental garbage, one of the ways you begin to figure out that it's there is it's not sometimes here, it's in your gut. You have this sort of physical and visceral reaction. And it's the part of you that when it kicks in, it tends to start limiting your world and keep you in that comfort zone. And then we sit there 30 or 40 years after it happened and going, I just wish I could get a little more out of life.
How do you begin to uncouple that? And then is there a separate step to actually putting it, as you say, in the landfill?
Yeah, no, that's another really good question. So there's a good story that goes with that. So I'm on my first appearance on a TV show, right? So nervous and but I'm doing okay. And there are two hosts, and the first one asks me, so how do I get rid of mental garbage? You wrote a book. Here's 8 steps. How do I do it? So I answer the question, and then the other host says, great. Now, how do I actually get rid of it? So I answer the question again. And they ask the same question like 5 different ways. And then, thank you very much, Stephen, for being on our show. And I left. And when I watched it, all my friends were like, gosh, you did great. You did really well. And what I knew was that I had missed the target. And so Norm and I went back, the co-author, Norm LeMay and I, we went back and we sat down and we said, okay, we got these 8 steps, we've got this book, but what's the boil down? And we realized it actually comes down to one word called ACT, which stands for aware, choose, toss. And you're going to hear me talk about this for the rest of the time that we're together. Because it's the awareness piece that's the biggest thing. Once you become aware of something, you can never become unaware of it again. We laugh because we tell people, and I'm going to apologize in advance if I destroy your world here, but there was a certain point when we're kids that there really is no tooth fairy.
It's okay.
Okay, you're all right? You're all right
I'm
with
okay.
that? Okay, good. So you can never become unaware of that again. Now, at that point, there's a choice. Just like if you're aware that every time somebody makes a comment about something, and you feel the reaction come on, not the response, but a reaction, an emotional reaction, or you feel yourself tense up. The moment you become aware of it and you figure out, ooh, that triggers that, you'll never be unaware of it again.
Right.
That's where the choice comes in.
Okay.
You can still choose to put your tooth under the pillow and hope that you get a quarter from the tooth fairy. Just like you can now choose to keep doing the same thing you do over and over and over and get the same result over and over and over again. Or you choose to toss. And it's just like, you know what? I'm not going there. I'm going to actually try something different. And it's that awareness piece, it's enormous. And we realized out of that one TV show, the more we talked about, the more we realized you become aware of something and you toss it. I may not know what I'm going to do different, but the fact that the garbage is out of the way, that you're not making the same choice or listening to the same garbage, opens up a universe of choices to do something different.
So if I have, say, the thought that I can't do a particular something, and I decide that I am going to set that aside, throw it away, does it ever work its way back?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's a process of continuing the ACT process that you're talking about, being the aware, choosing, and then setting it aside again.
Yeah.
Does it ever get to a point where you don't have to keep doing that?
If you move to the planet Zork,
okay,
they don't have any mental garbage anymore.
Great.
So we'll get in the car, we'll drive there, life is perfect, you throw it out, it's gone. But unfortunately, life on planet Earth works a little differently than that. So here's what we found. So in general, when you throw something out in the can and the garbage guy's picking it up and he's driving down the street, you're usually not going to throw your robe and slippers on and go chasing after the garbage truck saying, no, I really want that banana peel back, please.
Right. Okay.
You know, you throw physical garbage out, it's pretty much out of your life. You rarely hear about, the diamond ring that they're digging through the landfill to find. But in general, when we toss, it's gone. Mental garbage doesn't work like that. There are things that constantly trigger it, especially if it's something significant. So
and layers too, like heavier, deeper.
Exactly. You've been adding on it for years and years. And so we talk about this being a process, not an event.
Okay.
So the idea is, and you're absolutely right, it's going to pop back up again. But here's the beauty. We're not talking about the ability to get rid of it permanently. The brain just sort of doesn't work like that.
I think it's really important to emphasize that.
Absolutely. You kind of look at it from a neuroscience perspective. What we're talking about is rewiring. Neuroscience is based on the idea of neuroplasticity, the idea that the brain, I don't care how old you are, the brain is not firm. It's plastic. It's elastic. So the old term, neurons that fire together, wire together.
Right.
So we all have an event that took place, and boom. We automatically fire a certain way because that's the way the brain's neurons are wired. What we're talking about by throwing something out is you're introducing something different. All of a sudden the wiring changes just a little bit. And you're saying, right now, I'm not in this moment going to do what I've done. I'm doing something different. I'm tossing the trash.
Right.
3 days later, you're right back in the same spot. Something triggers it, and you're like, oh no, what am I doing? And you're looking in the mirror going, really? I thought I was over that.
Exactly.
But that's where ACT comes in. You're now aware of it. I'm throwing that out. I'm getting 5 minutes of relief from this. And you try something a little different. Well, now the wiring goes from there to there. And the more trips you make to that mental landfill, the more times you actually throw it away, even if it's just for a minute, you're getting yourself some distance from it.
Okay.
And there's going to be a point where it may pop back, but it's like 20% of what it was. You don't feel it in your gut anymore. You don't feel all twisted up. You don't get that knot in your stomach.
Right.
That's what it means to throw garbage away. And eventually, the garbage may still be there, but it just doesn't affect you anymore like it used to. And you're off making different choices.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm really glad that you said that it's a continual process, that it isn't like this quick fix, cure, done. It's a process that we go through.
Let me know where that is. I'd love to go get it.
Okay, yeah, well, I think a lot of people would. So let me just take a few minutes to let everyone know about the bundle that you put together. we, of course, have his book, which I showed you earlier, How to Get Out of the Dumps. And he also has included, if you'd like to go a little bit deeper into the material, there is a companion guide. It's kind of like a workbook and full of exercises. And I believe we're also offering the PDF version so that if you want to redo a page or two multiple times, you can just print it out and do that. And Stephen has also offered a, how long is it? 4 hours?
It's a little over 4 hours.
4-hour audio course.
Called Talkin' Trash.
Talkin' Trash, and it even goes deeper. So the layers we were talking about, you can start off with the book and move your way down and really get into the juice of the exercises and the processes that will help rid your mind of mental trash. And we are offering that for $49.95, which is 40% off. So it's a great deal.
And what's fun about the audio course, too, is it's actually conversations between Norm and I. You know, if we put everything we wanted to in the book, you'd be sitting there for about 2 years reading an encyclopedia, because there's so much of this that we get asked all the time, you know, what's the most common garbage that you come up with, or how do I get rid of it, or, you know, what techniques do you have for this specific type of garbage?
Right.
So what we did is we looked at everything that didn't make it in the book, and we sat down and we started just having a casual conversation about it, but we followed each chapter. And so everything in Talkin' Trash is everything that didn't make it in the book that we wanted to put in. So it's actually, like you said, that next layer
and
down.
So your partner in crime here is Norm LeMay. Got it.
And so it's just been a fabulous collaboration. Norm is about 15 years older than I am, so there's that whole generational difference. We talk about this all the time in lectures that we give, that there's generational garbage. You know, and if you're, say, manager of a company, and you don't understand that the way you motivate a baby boomer is different than a millennial, you're going to have a very difficult time. So there's all of that, and we've just learned so much just by collaborating both our different work styles. You know, there's, you know, parent-child issues, all of that has garbage. It has so many different layers. In fact, what we tell people is we've been spending, since we've been together here today, talking about our own individual garbage, the stuff that's here. Now, there's actually another layer of that, and that's the garbage between you and somebody else that you're talking to. Relationship garbage. It happens between us and our kids. It's between us and our parents, everybody we work with. And then if you're in an office, if you're in a home, the way the house runs, the way the office runs, that has garbage in it. Nobody ever empties the dishwasher. The copier's always broken. The software doesn't work. The internet's always down. So think about it. So you're walking in and you got your garbage. That's mixing with somebody else's garbage. So now you got your own individual stuff mixing with the relationship garbage, which then overlays over the top of, you know, the fact that none of the chores get done in the house, or, you know, that you've got, and it's like, is it any wonder we go home at the end of the day and just go, oh, I can't take this, because it feels like the same thing's happening over and over, and it is. It's the same garbage that comes knocking all the time. And the recognition, and Norm and I have had to work out a lot of garbage in our relationship, and this collaboration that we have, is the recognition that there's these layers of trash, but the more you're aware of them, the more you can spot it as, well, that doesn't have any value. If I keep doing that over and over, if that person says something to me and I come right back at them, there's no value in that, because all we end up doing is fighting, or I end up lonely, or I end up frustrated, or I end up feeling depressed and eat, you know, a whole pint of Haagen-Dazs on Saturday. Because and so the idea is, if I'm aware of it, I can set that garbage aside for a little bit and make a different choice. And the power of that awareness is huge. That's why ACT, you know, making such a bad performance, you know, flubbing that one TV show was the best thing that ever happened, because we realized that once you're aware of it, you can make different choices. Just like if you're aware that there's multiple levels of garbage, you're that much smarter to figure out how to get rid of it.
Well, and sticking with the whole garbage metaphor, okay, this is going to sound really silly, but I have to ask it.
Go for it.
What about recycling? What about composting?
It's great.
Is there anything following that metaphor that our trash, and this kind of leads into my next question about trash and treasure. So, you know, because composting is good for the planet, it works its way into food and beneficial things, and recycling, you reuse some stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not so great stuff, but then you recycle it into new stuff that's actually usable and good.
Yeah.
So thinking about that and then looking at, well, how do we distinguish between what might be a treasure that I can maybe route in these other ways and what really is the stuff I need to just huck.
Yeah.
You know, how do you distinguish and differentiate between those?
That's a great question. The one of the challenges that we had, I could do a whole show just on what it takes to write a book, which is really quite its own process. And we actually talked about recycling, and the truth is there is a way to deal with mental trash from the perspective of recycling, but to get there, it gets very confusing. And that's the place where the metaphor started to fall apart because it just got too complicated. And so in the interest of not having everybody turn their computer off and go, what was that guy talking about? I'll sidestep that one into the politically correct thing and pivot to another question. The truth is it's all kind of the same. If you think about recycling and reuse, it really does come down to exactly what you're talking about. What has value and what isn't? What's trash and what is treasure? So let's take, for example, you're in a relationship with somebody, whether it's love or a friendship, or you're trying to get to know somebody, and the red flag goes up. They say something, they do something, and you're kind of like, Now that's not garbage. That's potentially just good common sense. It's rooted in perhaps an experience you had with somebody else that went sideways. And you're sort of like, I think I want to step a little carefully here. This may feel toxic or potentially toxic, or I just have this feeling, which a lot of garbage is rooted in that feeling. That's a good thing. And that has real value to you because it may stop you from going down a path you don't want. When that turns into, I'm not going to trust anybody.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
And that may have all come from the same root. I mean, I could tell you from me personally, I had a real hard time. I was really short. I had big, thick, Coke bottle glasses. I got beat up all the time at school. I was invisible to females, And so I wired it as not good enough, not good looking, nobody wants me around. And so that's the place I would go. That was my comfort zone. Is it a negative, dark area? Absolutely. But it's what I was used to and comfortable with. And I'm actually okay was very uncomfortable. That felt like garbage, even though that's the positive way of thinking.
Ooh, now that's interesting.
See? And so what I found is eventually you start to get rid of some of that. When you become aware of it, you're like, well, why am I thinking like that? What value is that to me? And when I began to realize there isn't any value in thinking like that, you know what? Look at the mirror doesn't break. Truthfully, you're not that bad looking. And so I started pushing some of that aside, and then of course changes start happening.
Right.
So the determination of trash versus treasure is really you running it through what we call a value filter. If you think about it, every garbage truck, every car has an oil filter. You run the oil through it, what does the filter do? It catches the garbage.
Right.
Do the same thing in your brain. Run a thought through it and just ask yourself that simple question you just asked. Is this trash or is it treasure?
Now, can you use that same process when you're, like what you just said, that I'm okay, felt like trash?
Right.
So will running it through that same filter stick there, or will you just end up tossing that because you're not comfortable with that whole idea, even though it's more beneficial to you and more, produces more well-being and is probably more of the truth.
Yeah. In fact, we talk about that comfort zone piece in the book. There is no doubt this is going to push you out of your comfort zone. When you start thinking of what's going on through your mind or what's happening between you and somebody else in terms of garbage, it's going to make you uncomfortable.
Right.
There's no doubt about it because garbage is very visceral. There's no doubt when you think about it, you kind of know what to do. It doesn't pull any punches. So when you become aware of what you're thinking, and then you realize, boy, thinking like I'm not good enough actually kind of feels comfortable to me.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, ew. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
We love it when people go, ew.
Because
it's that ooh moment, that's the emptiness piece that we talk about.
Ah, okay.
See, when the garbage guy dumps your trash can, and you open the lid and you look inside, what's in there?
Nothing.
It's empty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing happens the very first time you catch yourself saying, you know what, I'm living in a black hole in this particular area of my life in the way I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment where you've already dumped it because
Mm-hmm.
you're now aware of it. And there's sort of this intolerance to say, I don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
That emptiness that you open up, like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. That's chapter 3 where we talk about creating a route.
Right.
But that moment when you realize I'm not going to do what I've done before is huge.
Right.
Because look, you've got a universe of choices you can make.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, you realize that thinking, being comfortable by putting myself down, is the first step to stop thinking like that anymore. That's where the neurons start to rewire, literally, in your brain.
Okay.
You are rewiring the way you think. And then
creating that new route.
Absolutely, because then you say, well, what do I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I actually want to be comfortable with feeling all right about myself. I want to be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what, my body looks fine. Really. Seriously, I look great the way I am. I don't care what it looks like. Or, you know what, people actually do like me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you begin to rewire that a little bit, your brain starts to rewrap itself around that new message. And it might take 20 times to throw it out. You walk by a mirror, you're like, oh, really? It's like, wait, we had this garbage talk, Kaufman, remember?
Right.
And it might be that fast.
Uh-huh.
It's momentary, but guess what? That's what it takes, and that's the slow rewiring.
Right.
That's
the fact
the
that
process.
It's actually happening
in real time
is like the first key, the big thing that creates the momentum.
Yeah. So learning that I'm comfortable with my garbage thoughts
Mm-hmm.
is the first step to saying I need to get uncomfortable with my garbage thoughts. I'm tossing that,
Mm-hmm.
and I will slowly start to create a new comfort zone for myself, built around the exact opposite. You know what? You're fine the way you are.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's cool.
Isn't that fun?
That is way fun. I have like a bajillion questions, but instead of hog the conversation, I want to bring it back around to kind of what you were talking about, all the multiple places in our lives that have the garbage.
Yeah.
And when you started talking about that, I'm just like going, whoa, there's a lot there. So we do have a couple of viewer questions that I think would fit into that pretty well. And the first one is, what is the most common garbage people carry with them?
That's such a good question. So I'm going to answer it this way.
Okay.
We have an exercise we do whenever we do a live event.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll walk people through our definition of garbage. We talk about value because that is the cornerstone of really deciding, do I want to keep this or not? Does it have any value to me in how I act or how it makes me feel?
Right.
And then we hand a little sheet of paper. And we have people write down a piece of garbage that they're carrying around that if they had 5 minutes of relief from it, their life would feel different. 5 minutes. Forget about getting rid of it permanently. And then we walk them through sort of a neuroscience exercise of taking all that energy and all that negativity and they're crumpling it up. And literally then I hold up a garbage can and they try and throw it in the garbage can. Gets a good laugh and it's fun, but there's real kind of neuroscience behind that piece. It's when you write it down, it makes it tangible. And when you walk through getting rid of it, it could be somebody's first step and try to get rid of something they can't hold and touch and feel like they're used to doing with physical trash.
Right.
Well, the thing, we're very private about that. We take them home and we go through this little process where we burn them, because it's very important to take that energy and really send it on its way.
Right.
But we have looked at what people have written on that, and it is extraordinary what people get rid of. There is no one single most common piece of garbage because we've had people talk about, illnesses that they have, issues with money, relationships. It's all over the board. But if I were to boil it down, like, are there major categories? Self-confidence is huge for people.
Okay.
Love, feeling appreciated, feeling valued in a relationship always shows up. Some of the more mundane things, money issues, the house, we see those. But a lot of it really has to do with people wanting to feel connected to somebody else. And either they've got garbage that they know they're carrying around that's preventing them from really connecting with other people in a meaningful way. Not just like, hey, let's go have a beer. But I'm talking about that right here stuff.
Right.
Whether it's with a friend or somebody that they're married to or going out, or parents trying to connect with their children. So we see that. And then we just see it, or there's garbage coming at them.
Mm-hmm.
So either they're generating the trash, or they're having to deal with this wave after wave of it coming at them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's humbling.
Mm-hmm.
What people have written down on that paper, and the work that we do to try and help people get rid of it, it's truly humbling.
Mm.
And so that's how I would answer it, is it just seems like people are looking for a way to get the blockage, get the garbage, get all of those pieces that prevent that real meaningful connection. They want to get rid of that.
Good exercise for people to try. And it's something you can do by yourself, I would imagine.
Absolutely. In fact, that's why we have exercises at the end of every chapter in the book. That's why we created the workbook. When you write it down, that's the first step in getting tangible with it. Because then it's just not something tumbling around your mind where it's kind of nebulous. It's in black and white on the paper. Yeah. And then when you take that paper and you say, I'm taking all that energy, all that emotion, and I'm crumpling it up. The other piece we tell people is literally shout out, and we make people do this, toss that trash.
Nice.
Because the verbalization of it is as potent as writing it down. It's just like sometimes when you want to go close the bathroom door and scream when the garbage is like right here, it's that same concept. And you don't necessarily have to scream, like I don't recommend in the middle of your work day, toss that trash, throw it on. People are like, are you okay? But sometimes just writing it down, crumpling it up, and just saying, I'm taking all that negative energy, and you make that little ball that big, and just say, toss that trash, and throw it in the closest garbage can. That is one tangible way to get rid of mental garbage the moment it hits you. Grab a piece of paper, write it down, crumple it up, I'm done with this.
Right. Sounds fabulous. And I'll take a few more minutes just to mention to everybody about the bundle, because you can get that exercise and go through a lot of other different exercises as well. And so Stephen has put together a bundle that includes his book, How to Get Out of the Dumps, and a companion guide, which is a workbook. Again, a lot of the exercises and things that we were talking about, plus a lot more. It takes you a little bit deeper into the concepts of the book. And then he also put together an audio course. That's a good, 4 hours chunk of time to go through even on a deeper level. And you can find that product bundle on www.beyondword.com/Kaufman. And we are offering that bundle for $49.95. It's a 47% discount, and you get free domestic shipping. So pretty darn good deal. And I have like 1,000 questions, but I'm also going to go back to another viewer question first.
Great.
So the next question is, what is the easiest way to identify that something is extra garbage we're lugging around?
Yeah, very good. Probably for me and for Norm, when we were wrestling with that same question, it's probably the easiest thing is to recognize what you're feeling. Because sometimes what you think, it's very easy to sort of ignore it. I mean, these thoughts have been running in our minds for a long time. If I could tell you about the kind of garbage I've been carrying around for decade after decade. But a lot of times you actually feel it. When you get triggered by something, you'll feel it in your body. Your throat will get tight. You'll start to see your vision narrows a little bit. You get this sort of feeling in your stomach. There's a twitch. It's weird, but this stuff really does kind of show up. And it's sort of like, that sounds a little woo-woo to me. Well, you know what? The brain is part of the body, and it's all wired together. And the fact that I could think something and not have it show up in my body is kind of, it's all part of the same system, right? So one of the biggest pieces that we tell people is going back to ACT. I told you I'd be harping on this the whole time. It's that awareness piece. Now, I'm not suggesting that you walk around every morning going, I need to be aware of my body. That's not what this is about.
And aware of every thought.
Really, sort of like this glow of, oh wow, I'm aware that I'm aware. I'm not talking about that. It's the moment when, and we talk about this in the book, again, the garbage guys are very practical, right? This is boots on the street kind of stuff. So if, let's say you're going to a family reunion, or you're going to a holiday party at the office, or you're walking in and you got to sit down and have a conversation with somebody that you don't want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? Expect the fact that some garbage is going to come out.
Yeah.
Because guess what? It's probably not the first time you've had a difficult conversation.
Right.
It's not the first time you walked into that family reunion and cousin Edna is there, who you know is going to wail on you because she doesn't like your whatever.
Right.
So if you expect the fact that you're probably going to run into some garbage,
Mm-hmm.
then you could kind of be watching out for it, and then you're going to feel something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, uh-oh, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that moment where you can say, you know what, this is the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not have even been aware of it because you've been up here, cerebral.
Right.
We're talking about just take a minute and focus a little down here.
Uh-huh.
And boy, that's your first indication of, ooh, this.
And it's at that point then you go into the choice.
Absolutely.
And then you go in.
Yep, I'm going to toss that for now. And that's why we go into the third chapter where we talk about creating a route.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say what you decide in your comfort zone, you've always been, I'm not good enough.
Right.
And let's say your route is, you know what, I really want to X.
Mm-hmm.
And X includes I want to feel better, or I want to feel good about myself, or I want to get a new job.
Mm-hmm.
Let's use that one. I want to get a new job.
Mm-hmm.
And your comfort zone is, I'm not going to apply for that. I'm totally not qualified for it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you probably are,
right.
But something's holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first time you notice it, you're going to throw, I'm not qualified out.
Mm-hmm.
If your route says, I am qualified and I'm going to get that job, or I'm going to reach for that promotion,
mm-hmm.
guess what? Anything that shows up that's like the old way of thinking
uh-huh.
is garbage. Because if you
because it doesn't support that new
exactly,
route.
Especially if that's something you really, really want.
Okay.
So think back and think about something in your life that you really, really wanted, whether it was something physical,
mm-hmm.
I want a new car, a new couch,
mm-hmm.
or it was something, I want a relationship, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that one time,
mm-hmm.
right? And in fact, everybody should do this. You think to yourself, remember how you wanted that, how it just like nothing was going to get in your way, right?
Yes.
Like just try and get in my way.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we mean by a route.
Okay.
It's that in your bones, I know I want it. Well, if you were saving money towards that couch or that car,
uh-huh.
or you were really vying to get that job,
mm-hmm.
anything that crept in your way that didn't line up with that, boy, that was garbage. Gone.
Not even a thought.
Didn't even put up with it.
Right.
Because you were so convinced that this is where I want to go on my route.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we talk about. The first time you throw trash away, you get that emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you decide, okay, I'm not going to do it that way. What do I want?
Right.
That's when you create the route that says, this is what I want. And at that point, tossing the garbage gets easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you see anything in your way of that goal, I don't want it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you start throwing it out. And then it becomes your new habit. That's your new comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that new set of muscles. You go to the gym for the first time, and you lift weights, you come up next day, you're like, ow, that hurts. But then you do it a second time, and you're still kind of sore.
But not as bad.
And by the fifth time, you're like, I need to change my routine. I don't feel anything at all.
Right.
And you start building the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly the same thing.
Okay.
This is that neuro rewiring that we're talking about.
Okay.
And it becomes your new habit. It's your new groove.
That's cool. And I can kind of attest to that it works, because it just brought to mind just this past month. I was renting a house, and the landlords sold it. I had a month to find a new place to live for my family. Renting wasn't an option. So I did something that everybody thought I was crazy to do, and I said, I'm going to buy a house. No way can you do that in 3 weeks. No way can your loan be approved in that short a time. No way are you going to find something. No way can you get moved. And I'm buying a house.
There was your route.
I have to tell you, we found a house in one day.
Yeah.
We made an offer. It was accepted. Our loan went through. Even our loan broker was like, oh, it's going to take 20 days. 5. Went through. We even had extra time to move because the other buyer for the house got held up. So we actually, it all worked. 1 month, done.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And that's
new route.
That's brilliant. Well done.
Yay!
Well done. And it's a small example of what happens when you decide this is the route I want to be on. And so all the negativity, that's all garbage. And remember, people are never garbage.
Right.
But the things that people do and the things that we say and the things that the way we act, that's where the garbage is. And so, well, you won't be able to.
I can.
That's it. But you know what? I want that more than I want the garbage. And that's that tipping point. It's sort of like who's behind the driver's seat driving your truck. Is the garbage going to be in charge of the truck, or are you going to be in charge of the garbage?
Right.
And so it's amazing how once you start to see it in those terms, once you realize this is really just trash, because I want this more than I'm willing to give into the negativity that comes with this type of garbage.
Right.
It feels like it's miraculous, but it really isn't. It's
miraculous.
It is.
It felt miraculous.
Yeah.
Well, and the important thing too is that now that I went through that experience, it's like what you're saying. There's a new channel there that the next time I say, yep, that's what I want, I have no doubt that that's what's going to happen.
Yep. And life on planet Earth is such that you're going to still run into negativity.
Of course.
People are still going to tell you can't, you and them. Garbage never stops. You generate it every day physically. You're going to generate it every day until you stop breathing. What we're really trying to say is you now have a choice.
Yes, and that was the most empowering part, because even though all this stuff came up, things got lost, things were tight, the timing was weird for a while, but it's just like, that's it over there. And even though you had to come up against those things all the time, which I think will just happen, you still had that push for that one thing.
And you now have a tangible example of what it's like to throw garbage away in one specific area.
Right.
Which means now you can start to apply that to all sorts of other areas.
Right.
And that's why when you get rid of garbage, you get rid of it one piece at a time. It's rare that we put a huge dumpster in the driveway.
Exactly.
Okay, this is the process piece. And so we talk about this in the book, and we talk about it when we speak. This isn't let's shake my whole world up. Start with just one little piece. One thing that's been bugging you for a while, and get a little bit of experience with doing something different by throwing away the old way of thinking. And you're like, wow. Just like you, it's like, whoa, I made that happen. And then you move along, and it's like you do it a second time, you're like, okay, this is kind of weird. Now, I mean, we're not promising you'll read our book and your life's going to be magic and perfect and you'll grow wings and you'll be able to fly to work every day. It doesn't work like that. But the truth is, what's the alternative? Well, let's just keep doing what we're doing. Let's just let the garbage run it. Let's not pay attention to it. And then we get what we get.
Well, and that leads me into my next question, because, oh my gosh, time is going so fast. I really wanted to take some time to talk about toxic waste. Because I think not only are we seeing it, in our environment so prolifically, but the way we respond to that, or just respond to just what you were talking about earlier that had me in like the immediate state of overwhelm, all of that, it's like how, what is it when we become toxic? How do we get that way? And how do we prevent it? Or if we're already that way, how can we start chipping away at that so we come back into a state of balance?
This is one of the biggest topics that we're asked about. And this is one of the chapters that just really rings the bell for people when they read the book. So I'll start off by saying that when it comes to toxic waste, and obviously we're using the metaphor, what's toxic in our lives, there's really three parts to it. Either there's some people in your life that might be toxic. There might be things in your life that might be toxic, like credit cards or drugs. Or there might be situations that might be toxic or potentially toxic. The company holiday party, the family reunion, situations you walk into that could go sideways very quickly. Now, if you set those three up, then there's really two levels of toxic waste. There's what we call low level and high level. Now, low level, it's kind of like, think of bleach, think Drano.
Right.
Okay? It's the stuff that you're just kind of rolling around in your mind, and it's not ordinary garbage. It's not just, oh gosh, I always, that sort of mental chatter. This is the stuff that gets a little caustic.
Okay.
This is the stuff that really does have you prevent you from applying for a job or reaching out and connecting to somebody. It's the stuff that, especially if it mixes, like you'll start off by saying, but nobody really likes me and I just feel really bad, and then it changed to another one, and you know what? I think it's because I don't like the way I look, and one starts leading to the other. It's like if you took bleach and Drano and mixed them together. That's why there's warning labels on the back. Don't mix with this. Be careful how you handle it. So that's sort of that low-level toxic stuff that just really starts to grind away at you.
Okay.
And then there's the high-level toxic waste. That's the big stuff. That's the addiction.
Okay.
That's the terminal arguments, the ones that get nasty and personal. The stuff that is almost beyond your ability to deal with or to try and fix. Okay. And it could be between you and someone else, or you're observing it between two people, but it's very close to you. So the idea is, once you become aware of the fact of, ooh, this is more serious than just a fleeting thought, or we got to get into a new house. Right. This is affecting the way I feel or act in a certain area of my life. And it's either like, ooh, I really don't like this, or it's like, I need to get help.
Right.
This is a big thing. That's the toxic piece.
Okay.
And so if you look at, well, how do I get rid of it?
Yeah.
Well, the lower level toxic stuff, awareness is a big piece of it. So we talk about, using some protection. So the idea is, can I remove myself from the situation or water it down? I can tell you that there was a time when my teenage daughter and I, like this.
Oh, I'm there with my stepson right now.
Yeah. And the conversations aren't pleasant, and they're escalating, and pretty soon you're arguing about the argument.
Yes.
And you're arguing about how you're arguing, and then it gets personal. That is a toxic conversation.
Right.
There's no value in that at all. It's not building the relationship.
Correct.
So we learned that when we're in that spot, we laid some ground rules. If it gets toxic, we stop. One person is allowed to walk out of the room. I can't do this right now. I need to stop.
Okay, we do that too.
Totally responsible.
Good. Okay.
That is getting rid of garbage in a conversation by saying, I'm not continuing it anymore.
Okay.
So that's one way to deal with that lower level stuff. Or if you know you've got the potential to abuse a credit card, cut it up.
Yeah, don't use it.
Don't use it. Give it to a friend and say, we're going shopping together, and you're going to control, my budget is this, and then I'm handing the card over to you. Right. I mean, these are ways that you control the effect that low-level toxic waste can have. Or I'm going in to a family reunion, and I am staying away from Aunt Edna or Uncle Fred.
And these are the preventative.
Precisely.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the high-level stuff, your danger there is we tell people, treat it just like a garbage company who has to go into a toxic site and clean it up. So the first is literally, you think about putting a mental hazmat suit on. And I know it sounds goofy, but it really works. So when garbage guys go in and they're faced with a toxic situation, there are four things. First is they look at prevention. Is there a way I can even avoid coming in contact with this? Can I bring a machine in or something? So this same thing. If I know that I've got a friend of mine that's got an addiction problem, do I need to read up on it? Do I need to figure out what resources are there? So I'm not necessarily getting involved in the situation.
Right.
But let's say there's no choice. You have to be involved with it somehow. Step 2, protection. How do I protect myself? So I'm not going into the room alone with them. Or I'm going to bring a third party in to help have this conversation or the intervention or whatever it is. The third one is disposal. Now this is where we all have good intentions, and we jump into the middle of, somebody's got a money issue, so we jump into the middle of it. And we're not qualified.
Right.
I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
I'm not a money expert. I'm not an ex. If there's a toxic spill, you and I just don't go grab our broom and go clean it up.
Right.
We give it to
the
experts that know how to do it. So in this case, is there a counselor? Is there a whoever that should clean this up?
Okay.
And the fourth piece is restoration. Okay. After you clean that mess up, somebody just destroyed my credit. I'm a identity theft victim. How do I restore my credit back from that toxic mess? How do I rebuild the relationship with the rest of my family because I now had to deal with this one toxic relationship or situation that went sideways. So there are different ways that you do it. High-level toxic waste, you're a lot more cautious.
Okay.
How was that?
That was awesome. And I'm noticing that we're rapidly running out of time, unfortunately, because I want to ask so many more things. But I will bring up one more time for everybody who's watching that Stephen has put together a pretty fabulous bundle for y'all out there that includes his book, How to Get Out of the Dumps, which we have been talking a lot about today, the ACT. And I specifically read the chapter on toxic waste, which I found very helpful. We also have the companion guide that goes with it. Takes you a little bit deeper, has exercises, and it's a workbook style of companion guide. And then we also have the audio course that he has put together, which is about 4 hours, a little bit more than 4 hours of good stuff to take you even more into the concepts. And we are offering that for $49.95, which is about 47% off. You get free domestic shipping, and you can find it on www.beyondword.com/Kaufman. So I want to take some of the final time we have, and just, there's another big question here that'll probably take more time. But we kind of covered it a little bit, how toxicity plays in various areas of our lives. So maybe you can take that and provide a number one takeaway from that. You know, how does toxicity work in relationships in office and with friends and children and parents, et cetera, et cetera? And what's one thing that everybody can take away to either make them more aware of those situations so that they can actually start that process of ACT, or something they can do to help disengage that whole spiral?
I think probably one of the biggest pieces of garbage that comes out of it, and it's also one of the easiest ways to recognize it, is drama. Toxic waste, whether it's low level or high level, always involves drama. And drama, it's those heightened emotions. I mean, again, the beauty of this is I don't have to explain much. Everybody should be like, yep, been there, done that. You know, and immediately it calls to mind those examples of when we run into this stuff. And drama, as you can imagine, it seeps everywhere. It sucks all the energy out of the room. It puts the focus on the drama instead of the energy going to the solution, and it just creates this sort of whirlwind vortex that just brings everybody in. You're like exhausted when it's done, and you haven't actually gotten any further in terms of trying to fix it. So, you know, what else does toxicity do? Where else does it seep in? It's definitely one of the things that holds you back. It's a tremendous killer of confidence. It shuts down relationships, because if you're feeling like there's some sort of toxicity creeping in, sometimes it's very hard for people to talk about it. And so you start holding back a little bit, or you start distancing yourself a little bit from it. So you can kind of take a clue. Another great place, another clue, are you shutting down? Somebody tries to say something and you're like, oh, you know, I'm fine. It's good. Don't worry about it.
I say that all the time.
Well, I'm fine. It's a good metaphor for I don't want to talk about that. And a lot of times that could be built around, I don't want to talk about it because that's kind of that yucky, gooey, toxic soup. Everything else about the relationship is good, but I don't want to go there. And I don't want to go there is what prevents that connection. Again, let me take you back. Why were people writing this stuff down? Because sometimes having that conversation feels toxic. Well, what I'm learning is I'd rather have an uncomfortable conversation than live with uncomfortable garbage.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Do you just go there? Even though it's uncomfortable, you just go there.
Go to the website, and you'll find a little mini video on having difficult conversations.
Oh, great.
How to get the garbage out of it.
Let's mention your website.
So it's thegarbagemansguide.com. And just look at the menu at the top, and one of the items there is free stuff. And there's video, there's audio, there's articles, all sorts of good stuff. But one of the early things that we did is we created a little course for people how to have a difficult conversation and how to get the garbage out of it. So you can kind of keep the decks clear. Again, you don't let the garbage build up so there's 28 cans in the kitchen before you finally get rid of it. You get rid of it one day at a time and one can at a time. Relationships are the same way. You have to kind of keep them clean. And so if you start to feel toxic waste building up, if you start to feel garbage building up, your second part of the question is, how do I get rid of it? I'm going to take you right back to that magic word, awareness. And once you're aware, uh-oh, here we are again. Here's how I feel again. A lot of times it's just either having that conversation with the person or taking a minute and writing it down or these are things to try and take it from the intangible. It's bouncing around my brain and I feel something and I can't quite put my finger on it, to either putting it down, having a conversation, calling a friend.
Asking for help.
Saying, seeing a counselor. That's a great thing to do, to say, I've got so much garbage I've been carrying around. I don't even know how to start getting rid of it. It's what counselors are there for. They're fabulous. And they start giving you the tools to begin to get rid of this stuff. But it really starts with this idea of awareness, because once you see it, then the action plan, the route that you can create to get rid of it becomes so much clearer.
Right. So what I'm hearing out of our whole conversation today that I'm really going to take with me is, I really hear the awareness part. And I don't know who said it, but somewhere someone said, awareness is 80% of the battle or something.
Yeah.
And so that alone, but then having the courage to take that next step, the choice step, and doing something different than what you're safe doing, familiar doing, whatever that is, and kind of putting your neck out a little bit to actually go a different direction.
And here's the motivation for that, because that's the part where, what's the takeaway? I've hammered on ACT. The awareness is huge. But to get you to that point of sticking your neck out, I like the way you phrase that. We have a couple of sayings. In fact, go to the website and click on Waste Wisdom, because we have these little quotes that we pulled from the book and from what we've learned. Think about the last time you cleaned something out. Say a closet or that junk drawer. How did it feel when you were done?
Well, I just moved, so it felt awesome.
It's like you got a free remodel for the house. Right?
Yeah.
That's what you could do for yourself, because you don't realize the effect this garbage has on you until it's gone.
Right.
And suddenly it's like you can breathe again. You're sort of like, wow, I don't have to do that anymore. And it's like somebody takes 20 pounds of concrete off your shoulders.
Right.
And the power of that choice of realizing I'm kind of free from that and I don't have to go there anymore. It's like this huge physical relief. That same feeling that you open the closet, it's like I can actually find my clothes now. So that's one of the motivations behind taking that step of saying, now that I'm aware and I need to do something about it, is that realization of, I don't have to live with this anymore. This really is a choice, because at the end of the day, this stuff that happens to us, it's nothing but a bunch of facts. You know what? This person said, I don't want to go out with you anymore. That's just a fact. How much garbage we make up around it, that's the choice.
Okay.
That's the choice.
Yeah.
So if you kind of look at your life and say, well, these things happened when I was a kid. When I was 15, my mother passed. Very, very suddenly. It had a huge effect on me. And it's not like, oh, okay, well, that's just a fact. Really, these are traumatic things that happen.
Right.
But at the end of the day, after 20, 30, 40, 50 years, at that point, it's fair to say, well, if you're still in the place of, I don't trust people because of something that happened 40 years ago,
right.
How much garbage do you want to keep making up around this? How much victim is there in that? Not that that's a good or bad thing, but the truth is, stuff happens to us. Factually. And we can choose not to keep making up garbage around that.
Around those. I think that's fabulous. And I wish we had a half hour more to talk about just that. So what was I going to say? Oh, and the other thing that I was taking away not only the awareness piece and the choice piece, but the motivation and incentive is what's over here.
Yeah.
I want a good relationship with my stepson.
Yeah.
That's my motivation for being uncomfortable, for noticing, for asking for help.
Yeah.
You know, it's that over there that I'm trying to get to. So that's what I'm taking away.
Great.
And I can't wait to dig in more to your book
Well,
and
great.
learn more. So I want to thank you so much
My pleasure.
for being on. And I wish we had more time, but maybe we can have you back.
I'd be thrilled to come back.
Okay. So I just want to remind people to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like today's show or any of our other shows that we have put on. And I will just close today by thanking Stephen again once more and to invite you all back next week. We are going to be talking with Charlie Lustman, who is the creator of the one-man pop opera, Made Me Nuclear. It's debuting actually tomorrow off-Broadway at the Soho Playhouse, and he will be with us next week talking about his newest project, Make Me Nuclear. Through storytelling, music, and humor, Charlie will share his own journey with cancer and how he's taking his show to the masses to help others facing similar journeys. So I hope you join us, and thank you for joining us today.